So next thing we're going to do is get the torque converter bolts in. Whenever you go to put these torque converter bolts in, make sure you always turn your motor clockwise. If not, you risk knocking a lash adjuster off. So I would recommend just spinning your flywheel around until you get to a spot to where you can get to with a wrench. What I've done is took a small screwdriver, because as you can see, it's not like a Turbo 400 or Power Glide. You don't have an open bottom bell, so you have to just kind of just ease it around till you get a bolt hole lined up. And what I like to do is get one bolt in, but not tight, and then get all the other ones started, and then go back, Loctite them, and torque them. Alright, so next what we're going to do is we're going to put on this cover. Basically it's just a inspection plate, 2 bolts. We'll do that now. Alright, so we got that cover on. Now we're going to put the starter on. It's got 3 bolts. This hot bolt's really hard to get to, especially if you got a set of aftermarket headers. But if you use a long extension, you can kind of reach through here and get to that. Alright, so we got the starter in. Like I said, easiest way is through here. Use a long extension, 3/8 drive, 10mm with a swivel. Now we're going to move back to the drive shaft. We're using a one-piece drive shaft, aluminum drive shaft. On this one, basically it's got stock flanges front and back, and that way we didn't have to reuse the factory 2-piece Coyote drive shaft. Alright, so we got that one-piece drive shaft in. As you can see, everything's hooked up. Don't forget your Loctite and torque from the spec. So now all we like is putting the X-pipe X-pipe back on, and we'll go from there. Alright, we got our X-pipe bolted on. Always remember to turn your clamps up where they won't drag, because they usually hang down at the lowest point. Same way up here. Always turn those up in a direction to where they're not hanging down. So we got that on. So now we're gonna mount the oil cooler for the transmission. We're running an adapter to an AN style fitting, so makes it easy to make lines to whatever length. You don't have to worry about using the stock all over again, because a lot of times, especially on these GT500s, this customer's running a I think it's a Titanic heat exchanger, so we're gonna have to mount the cooler somewhere else besides the stock location. So work on taking a bumper off and see where we can put it. Alright, so the next step, we're going to run some wiring. Show you the easiest way. I went ahead and cut this part of the carpet, that way you can access, and I also went ahead and drilled the hole. Now I used a stepper bit on a drill, and the drill's pretty easy. Now you have to come down a good ways, because if you don't, it's double layered up here, and if you do it up high, you'll have to use 2 grommets. So I like to do it down here, and I'm usually about 8 to 10 inches in front of the shifter. That's a good point to enter the tunnel. Something I forgot to mention was always try to drill the smallest hole possible. This connector has to get through this hole, so if it'll go through, it'll be a lot easier to size it to the grommet. I usually just buy the grommets. You can buy them AutoZone, Harbor Freight, Tractor Supply, any of those places, and I'll show you what it looks like after it's installed. Alright, so this is what it looks like underneath the car. Comes out a little bit behind the connector where it connects to the transmission. Now we're going to run a few other wires through here in a little while, but I'm going to go ahead and get the grommet sized, and then all we have to do is push some smaller wires through. We've got to do speedometer pickup that feeds back to the factory harness, and we'll do reverse lights. Alright, so I got my grommet here, and I went ahead and split it so it's going to go over the wires easy, and I'm going to go ahead and install this, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so this is what the grommet looks like after installed. It makes it look professional, and it keeps the wires from rubbing the bare metal, keep from shorting out. Definitely keep from having problems later on down the road, something you don't want to deal with. Alright, so I got my speed output wire pushed through, so I'm going to try to explain this to you. You have to use, on these GT500s, the factory ECU accepts a square signal, so basically the magnetic pickup senses the teeth on the reluctor ring in the transmission, and it only outputs a positive signal to the ECU. So what this quick shift does is it sends an AC analog. So what we got to do is we have to install a capacitor in series. Let's see if it'll zoom in here. With that, so what it does, it clips the negative signal and only sends a positive signal. What that'll do is that'll make your speedometer read correctly, just like factory. When you connect this, make sure you connect it to the blue with yellow stripe. I know it's kind of hard to see right here. That's the signal going back to your computer. Alright, this is after the console's installed, so what I had to do is I had to make a little notch here because this shifter is a little bit longer. Now, these shifters come with a chrome bezel, which I pulled this out of another customer's car and he didn't have one. So once you get a original bezel in it, just kind of covers everything up. What you also have to do, the lower console here, is you'll have to notch. If you don't, it'll be hard to get in gear. So that's something you don't want to do. You want to go in gear smoothly. It's going to be all on the shifter installation.